Hello everyone, this is Kaiva. In each country, there have been several attempts to assassinate the president. The details are not open to public in general. However, the president's assassination case that cannot be hidden is inevitably made public. On August 12, 2015, the most powerful explosion in Asian history occurred at Tianjin port in China. The explosion happened for 3 times. After the explosion, martial law was imposed on Tianjin for 18 days. The reason is that the Tianjin port explosion was not just an accident, but it was an assassination case of Xi Jinping. In Beidaihe, which is close to Tianjin, Xi Jinping and his people hold an informal strategy meeting every year. After the meeting, China's King Xi Jinping and his executives and officials visit Tianjin. The explosion of fire took place on the day of their visit. Fortunately, Xi Jinping and his executives did not visit Tianjin. This is because the hidden double spies gave some vague information. They couldn't extinguish the fire for 20 hours. Look at the picture. After the explosion, there was a fire for 20 hours. Many buildings were destroyed. 30,000 vehicles were burned or destroyed. This is not an accident. This is a deliberate explosion. They burned all the CCTVs and all the evidence. Within a 300-meter, 328 yards radius of the explosion, not an ant nor a cat could survive and was wiped out. Martial law was imposed for 18 days after the explosion. Why was the martial law imposed? It was to arrest the criminal who attempted to annihilate Xi Jinping and the Communist Party leadership through the explosion. As a result, many people, including Jiang Zemin, who was taking control of the military, were placed under house arrest. So far, Chinese Communist Party, CCP, has not disclosed the cause of the explosion. The official number of casualties announced by CCP is as follows: 175 deaths, 241 missing, and 798 injured. Nearly 100 firefighters were also killed. China, South Korea, and Japan believe that disasters occur if the leaders are bad or if the leaders are not loved by God. In other words, they believe that disasters happen because of the king or the president. Therefore, CCP announces the reduced number of casualties in case of disasters. For this reason, the Communist Party of China does not disclose the exact death toll of COVID-19. There were rumors that 2,000 people were killed by the Tianjin port explosion. Let's check the fact that the Tianjin port explosion was the assassination case of Xi Jinping. 3 days after the incident, Xi Jinping's opponent, Jiang Zemin, and his son were placed under house arrest. Second, after the explosion, Xi Jinping's opponents were sentenced to life imprisonment or death penalty. In particular, Ling Jihua was sentenced to life in prison 3 days after his arrest. Third, the Tianjin explosion occurred while the security personnel were investigating a suspicious truck. This is a typical deliberate explosion. Fourth, all media, including the US and foreign media outlets, were prohibited to cover the Tianjin port explosion. For the first 10 hours after the explosion, none of the Chinese broadcasts reported this incident. Fifth, Xi Jinping had cleaned up the deep-rooted evils, so he had many enemies. Earlier, Bushrai and his soldiers attempted a coup. Sixth, Mao Zedong's power comes from the muzzle of his gun. So, even after his retirement, he did not give Deng Xiaoping the power to control the military. After his retirement, Deng Xiaoping also did not give military control to Jiang Zemin. This was the tradition of the Communist Party of China. Seventh, Jiang Zemin also retired and didn't give military control to his successor, Hu Jintao. Jiang Zemin took control of the military until Xi Jinping's era. The dogma of Confucianism is to consider it a crime to betray the teachers, leaders, and those who gave help to you. Therefore, Koreans will never forget the United States that helped South Korea during the Korean War. The most popular foreigner in the East is the American. It's no joke. If you hate America as an American, come to Korea. If not drugs or homosexuals, all Americans are free pass in Korea. But you have to know one thing. If you live in Korea, you will become a demi-celeb and Koreans will lavish their attention on you. My father, me, and my brother have traveled to the eastern and western United States. There are homeless people in any parts of the world. Whenever Dad saw American homeless, he said that, quote, their parents helped Korea. That's why Koreans don't starve now. We should not forget the grace of the people who helped us. And he kept giving them small money. Of course, we almost became short of our travel expenses later on because of my father. North Korea will never forget China, which helped North Korea during the Korean War. However, Kim Jong-un has fallen into coma because he has forgotten the grace of China. Kim Jong-un on the screen is a deep fake. Former Chinese powerhouse Jiang Zemin established his men as the military generals. Jiang Zemin controlled the Chinese military even after his retirement. To control the military is to control China. Xi Jinping removed the military generals who were appointed by the retired Jiang Zemin. Xi Jinping played a powerful anti-corruption politics, and he eliminated many of the landed gentries with power and wealth. So, there were 6 attempts to assassinate Xi Jinping. The U.S. Department of Treasury is in charge of the guard of the president. China's Xi Jinping is guarded by the Air Force because Jiang Zemin's people took control of the army and the navy. In the future, the era will come where the US, India, and China take the central stage. China, along with India, is the most populous country in the world. To beat the enemy, you must know the enemy. Look at the Tianjin explosion, the Great Wall, and the Great Tomb of Qin Shi Huang. The US also thinks big and acts big. China also acts big. The Tianjin explosion tells us the huge scale of China. Europe doesn't know very much about China and Asia. Sin is forgiven, but ignorance can't be forgiven. Ignorance triggers war and tragedy. God bless you. This was Kaiva, and see you in the next video.